You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
This is the Hammock Hangers Podcast, where we hang out and talk about everything from hammocks and hammock camping to the group hangs from around the country. All right, everybody, what is up? We are back with another episode of the Hammock Hangers Podcast. I am your host, Paul Collins, or also known as Skunkape. Of course, I've got AJ Lynn, or also known as Pheonix, with me.
Hello, everyone.
And tonight we have a special guest, which may or may not be a good thing for AJ, because it is his wife, Dawn.
Very special guest. Very special guest.
So, like I said, it's his wife, Dawn. And depending on if AJ is buying something new or has found a new item on somewhere online that is a good deal for hammock stuff, she's also known as #Don'tTellDawn. So what is up, guys?
Hi, guys.
So I know, AJ, you wanted to get Dawn on here so we could talk to her some, about the trip and about the planning and the hiking that she done while out there. And then, of course, I'm going to probably try and get you in trouble somehow.
Probably.
So where did you want to start off with?
Well, I guess, for the audience, tell us about your camping experience. Did you grow up camping? And how does that translate until now?
All right. So, yes, I grew up camping. From the time I was very little, we started out tent camping, one of the old big canvas tents that I remember sleeping in. And then after a few years, we graduated to a small pop-up. We did that for a really long time. I mean, always this summer, we planned a summer trip. We went camping, we took our pop-up, and that's how we traveled and saw the U.S. growing up.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And then now y'all are doing that as a family, you and AJ and the two kids.
Yes.
Doing the same thing and everything. And I know AJ has constantly tried to get you into a hammock, and I think, if I remember correctly, he said that he succeeded this past trip.
Yes, and back in June when we went to Shenandoah, we had our first successful hammock camping trip, because we had a very unsuccessful previous trip.
Okay, previous trip being like 5 years ago.
Okay. Oh, that was funny. I thought it was something more recent.
No,
5 years.
No, we're talking 5 years ago.
Nice. So it was more successful this time?
Yes.
So why don't you talk about what made the first trip unsuccessful?
So like you said, it was 5 years ago. So he is still relatively new to hammock camping and how to do everything. And we decided we would try it out. He wanted us all to go out. So we picked a campground a half an hour from the house.
Okay.
Our youngest was three or four at the time.
Okay.
And she and I had never done the hammock camping before, and we get all the hammocks set up, and we have her bunked above me because she's so little. I didn't want her out on her own.
Right.
And we start trying to go to sleep, and she is everywhere. She has rolled out, or almost rolled out, numerous times, falling on me and this, that, and the other. And it's just not working. And so we decide, okay, let's change her hammock to one with an attached bug net so that she cannot fall completely out of it.
Right.
Well, in the haste of changing them, her hammock didn't get super tight. It wasn't hung right. And it slowly sagged onto my face as I'm trying to sleep. And at one point, it just she moved and it completely covered my face, and I breathed it in, and I ended up rolling out of the hammock myself because I couldn't breathe, and ending up on the ground. And she and I came home that night, and we went back and picked up the boys the next day. So,
oh my gosh.
That was not successful.
No, that does not sound too successful. It sounds like some of AJ's stories, though, that his like he's told us about his experience with getting tangled up in a hammock that kind of tacoed on him and everything else. So,
oh yeah, the tense sustain. Yeah.
so
I mean, we've done a lot of like little night camping because you came to HangCon this year,
Mhm.
and she spent I guess it's been like your first full night in a hammock since then.
Was that HangCon?
Was it HangCon this year?
In the freezing temperature.
When it was like 28 degrees or something that night. So, but I definitely did everything I possibly could. I threw like $1,000 setup. Like we had 0-degree quilts. We had like top covers. I was like, if she gets cold in this, then I give up. I just give up. But yeah. So this summer, after some conversation, after our DC trip, we decided to head over to Shenandoah National Park, which is a place that both of us, really like to go. Me growing up in Virginia, I'm very familiar with the area. Driving on the Skyline Drive and the Blue Ridge Parkway, it's just really, really, really pretty. It's like coming back home for me.
Right.
And just the whole logistics of driving the camper. It wasn't the driving camper in the Shenandoah because we've done that before. But the driving the camper through Washington, D.C. and Maryland,
God. Yeah.
where like traffic.
That just sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, where lines on the roads are pure and mere suggestions. And where there's a stop sign like every 50 feet. So we just decided, we want to do this other side of the our little first vacation, but we don't want to take the camper, and Airbnbs are stupid expensive for like a short little jaunt. So I got the idea, well, this sounds like a perfect opportunity for us to go hammock camping. Like, why not? Like, we've got a reservation.
Right.
I mean, we're not going to sleep on the ground. Well, I'm not going to sleep on the ground. And I don't want to set up a tent for like just her because the kids will totally hammock.
Yeah.
Right.
My son's been really into hammock camping really since I started. I want to say I took him out when he was like 7, and he's kind of been that way ever since. And my daughter, I think I waited till she was about 6 or 7 again before I took her
again.
out.
Yeah.
Took her to the same campsite, and we went out, and she got her own set of trees about 25 feet away from me, but so she couldn't smother me in the middle of the night. But she's kind of been set ever since. And in fact, I want to say Ainsley probably sleeps better in the hammock than Price does in the grand scheme of things. So
I know both of them
Dawn
seem
was
to
the
love
only
it.
holdout. So we kind of, she agreed, and she couldn't find a way to.
I couldn't really back out of it once you were there because that was the only place to sleep was in the hammock. So kind of committed.
So I kind of think AJ planned that.
For sure.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
Okay.
now what made this one so much better? I mean, other than not having a small child in your face.
Right. The temperatures were a little milder.
Okay.
So I think that helped me be able to try a few different things without freezing every time I adjusted, things like that. Maybe because I had to. So I had to figure out how to make it work. And I don't know. We had a little bit different pillow situation and just a few things like that. And then.
Did you sleep comfortable and warm?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What hammock setup was it, AJ? Was it a gathered in, or was it one
this
of the
particular
bridge?
one? She used one of my Dutchware banians.
Okay.
Because again, she had I think the load was maybe down in the upper 40s.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she had a 20-degree underquilt, a 20-degree top quilt, and I had the moonlight cover over it. So not only was she completely engulfed in down, any light was blocked out by this dark olive cover. So.
Okay.
And she was able to lay flat because it was a bridge hammock.
Right.
So.
Do you like the bridge hammocks? I know you've laid in a gathered in before in the past also. Which one do you like better, bridge or gathered in?
I think I prefer the bridge. I tend to be more of a side sleeper, so I have a little more opportunity to do that in the bridge.
Gotcha. So you plan on doing more hammock camping?
Well, I left saying, okay, the next time we go, we would do this and we would need to remember that. So I guess we'll try it again. Yeah.
Okay. What about HangCon? Are you still bringing the pop-up?
Yes.
Okay. As a backup though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things that kind of transition what I really want to get her into hammock camping is she has been really I wouldn't say an avid, but a very enthusiastic hiker. And literally up into this summer, I have not. But this summer has kind of like changed a lot of things. And, if we're looking at doing some, bigger stretches, on the DAT, or I know, we had talked about doing a trip on the
Foothills.
The Foothills Trail.
We're talking about the Foothills Trail.
And my father-in-law has done that, 2/3 of that. Or maybe sometimes in the winter or in the later fall, doing some sections on the Florida Trail. If you do something overnight, you need a shelter system. And we've spent enough money on hammocks. And when I say we, I really mean I. I have spent a lot of money on hammocks. And
so does that mean you're not going to buy any more?
Shut up, Paul.
What?
Hashtag don't tell Dawn.
Yes. It doesn't work now. She's right here.
I know. And then, Kristen brought her into the Yobo neighborhood.
Yes. Funny story about that. And this is a shout out to my good pal Kristen over at Yobo.
More hate mail.
Yeah.
More hate mail coming.
Love you, Kristen. So I had like bought something else. I don't even think it was hammock related, because I have a problem. I can freely admit that. And so Dawn says something like, "Oh, well, I guess that means you can't get the hive." Da 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 da. And so I was like, "Well, I'll show you." Because da 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 da. And then on the and then on the day of launch, I had busted my chops because I'm obviously working.
Right.
So I had finagled coverage and stuff for my class so I could go back to my room and make this purchase. I really hope that, my administrator's not listening. But it's all gravy. And so I went ahead and I actually got on the Kickstarter. I was I think I was 17 out of 20, and I went gangbusters trying to do it.
Right.
Literally the first thing that comes out of her mouth, when I step home. So you get on the hive, didn't you? You got on the hive. I saw where you got on the hive. Not knowing that because Kristen had liked my wife so much that Kristen thought it'd be a great idea to add my wife.
It was a good idea.
Into the Yobo neighborhood. So she's like, "Oh, well, I know when the Kickstarter started, and I saw that you posted that you got on there." And I'm like, "Oh,
backfire." That was funny. I remember the picture that I have also from HangCon 2 years ago?
I think it was HangCon 2021. It was the first one that we had taken over. So I had just bought a set of quilts from a vendor that's no longer around, and all of a sudden I'm looking somewhere else, and Dawn comes up behind me because she's helping with the registration at HangCon, and she sees these quilts that I obviously
complete
have.
Quilt set, by the way.
Yeah,
top
it's
quilt and under quilt.
It's not just one quilt. It is a top quilt and an under quilt. And she said, "We don't have a tie-dye set of quilts." And there's, I think the picture that you're talking about. There's this picture of just me Dawn looking toward the camera, and me just looking also toward the camera, but not at Dawn, and just going ah.
There's a wide eye Yeah.
We
Very
didn't,
shocked.
as in the past tense, but we do now.
I think multiple people said to me in that moment, "You do now."
Poor AJ.
I know.
I think that's when the hashtag Don't Tell Dawn started.
Yes, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that was the birth of that hashtag.
Yeah, I think it was. So now y'all went out west again, and now AJ said that you done a 14er while out there and
Yes.
done some hiking.
Yes.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
I hiked Handy's Peak, which is 14,048. I think is the elevation. And I learned a whole lot about hiking 14ers. We thought I had done lots of research, tried to be prepared because it's a very different hiking. You're hiking at those elevations,
right,
and the length and the difficulty and the different classes for the 14ers and things. But I wasn't prepared for some of what we saw. We couldn't make it to the main trailhead, even though we were in my dad's 4x4 heavy duty truck. The trailheads can be very difficult to get to.
Really?
So we decided, well, there's another place we can put in. It would add 2 miles in and 2 miles coming back. So it's 4 miles. But if we don't do that, we're probably not going to hike this at all. And from there, it went from being a 5 or so mile round trip hike to like a 9 or so mile. And then we ended up actually doing closer to 15.
Oh, wow.
So that was a lot. We ended up being out. It was my dad and my brother and I. My dad only ended up going part way because of the elevation altitude. And then my brother and I made it all the way, but we were out for like 12 hours.
Wow.
Like the last mile or so, we were going like 50 feet or 75 feet and needing to take a break and breathe and bring our heart rates back down. And then
because of the elevation?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So it took us a whole lot longer to do the last mile and a half or so than we thought it was going to. But it was pretty awesome once we got to the top. It was pretty epic. But it was definitely a big learning experience.
Now, was that your first 14er?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my first.
Do you have others that you plan on doing, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to do Mount Elbert, which is out there also. It's near the Twin Lakes area. And then I'd go for any of the other like class 1, class 2s. But Mount Elbert's kind of on my list is what I'd like to look at next. It is the highest 14er in Colorado.
Okay.
So
the second highest in the continental U.S.
So you had planned on doing Mount Elbert last summer.
Yes. And then I threw my back out.
Ooh.
Like days before I was supposed to hike it. So
on like a half-mile hike in Garden of the Gods.
I climbed the rocks. I shouldn't have climbed the rocks.
So for those that are unfamiliar with like 14ers, they're almost like rapids as far as like your class. The higher
that's what I was fixing to ask is about the classes.
Yeah, I think it goes to. I don't know if I'm exactly right. It's either 4 or 5. So your class 1 is like not really exposure. You don't really need to do route finding. It's just pretty much like a hike.
Okay.
You follow the trail to the top. Class 2, you get a little more exposure. Could have like just early starts of a little bit of scramble or things like that. As you cross from class 2 into class 3, you get more rock scramble or like loose areas with rock, more exposure where you kind of have to find your route through the loose rock or things like that. And then as you go up, you get a lot more exposure, a lot more route finding and things like that. So I'm not ready for those at the top.
So they just gradually get more and more difficult the higher the class number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So now what other hiking have you done?
Well, I've always like hiked in the national parks. Whenever we go visit national parks, state parks, I'm always
Okay.
looking for what's available. I did an 11-mile section of the AT, like what, 3 or 4 summers ago.
What section? Where? What state?
Where did we put in at? We put
we
in
were
from Punch Bowl to the James River Bridge.
Okay.
I believe that's what it was.
Yeah, James River
Um,
Bridge. That's a
Just
nice
out,
little area.
basically outside of Lynchburg area,
Yeah.
because we stayed just outside of Lynchburg. That was my first big like solo hike all day. I had like a pack and things like that. So
Right. Okay.
That was another one that went really well to the last
until
mile.
the very last mile. Yeah. I thought I would be really cool, and I'd been doing really well, and I came across this beautiful little stream, and I was going to cross it, and I was going to videotape on my phone,
Mhm.
crossing the stream, and I misjudged just how tired my legs were and just how much your pack can throw off your balance when you're already tired, and I just misstepped a little bit, and that was it. I was down in the water, so by the time I got to him a mile or so later, I was like scraped up and wet, and it's all on video. Like the whole fall, we have it on video. So.
See, AJ, she has video of it. You need to start wearing a body cam with all your incidences. So, with the this is something I think I've asked AJ, but he kind of gets a weird look on his face.
Oh, God.
Planning all these trips, these summer trips that y'all do.
Yeah.
Who does the planning? Who does most of the planning?
Well, all right. I'll be honest. It's a
That's the look he
combination.
gives.
It's a combination. So
Okay.
usually we come up with kind of like, this is the areas that we'd like to explore and start looking at and things. And we start looking at, well, how will we get from this place to this place? Obviously, if they're national parks or things, it's easier to find campgrounds because we know we're going
Right.
to try for the national park. And then when we can't get into those, we go for whatever we can find in the area. So he does a lot of that research. He will do like try
Okay.
to find our campgrounds for us and things like that. And then I continue to dig, and I'm usually the one that's finding all the little things on the like the national park website, or hey, there's this really cool museum in this town, or there's those kinds of things. I do a lot of that, and the kind of how long it's going to take us at each stop and things like that.
Okay.
So it's
So
kind of a share.
you plan more of the activities and stuff, and then he plans where the stays.
I mean,
Yeah.
I find out where the nearest like breweries, distilleries,
That's
wineries,
true too.
The important stuff, huh?
cideries, meaderies, the important things.
Hey, didn't y'all went through Texas, and I know, did y'all stop at that restaurant with the that huge steak?
Oh, okay, all right. So,
Be nice.
all right, don't get me started on that. All right. So, I had been looking like slightly forward to this place like all day because driving through Texas is miserable. Don't let anyone tell you different. I'd much rather drive through Kansas than drive through Texas. I think the wind in Texas blows at a constant 20 miles an hour with like 80-mile-an-hour gusts, and it's nothing but just blow dryer wind temperature. Okay, so it was one of our longer days.
Yeah.
Because we drove from Vicksburg, Mississippi, all the way to Amarillo.
Yes.
So Vicksburg is right on the border between Louisiana and Mississippi. So we drove that and all the way through Louisiana. Louisiana,
Probably
do
been
something.
like a 10 or 11 hour
Yeah.
drive day.
It was long, and I'm
Okay.
just like, we're just gonna go. So we ended up at this restaurant at like I want to say like
6:30,
6:30 or 7. So we
Yeah.
are hungry. And
Now this is a steak restaurant.
this is the steak restaurant. This is the
Okay.
big Texas.
that we have been to the year before
Yeah.
and had a good experience.
Okay.
So we thought we'd go back.
So there's a lot of people there because, we just, it was like a Thursday. Like it was weird, but it's a tourist place. So it was like, okay.
Right.
But the food was good last time. So we was going to go. So we got like a little buzzer thing or whatever. And we stayed close to the area near the thing. And we went outside. We're waiting for like an hour. And, we're just like, oh, let's just go somewhere else. Like, no, this is what I wanted. We've waited for an hour. They're bound to call us. It gets like an hour and a half. and I go up to the person and say, "Hey, we've been waiting for a while. Is there anything, you can do, or give us like an ETA just so we can like mentally prepare?" It's like, "Oh, we called you like after 30 minutes. Like we got rid of your reservation."
They said the only thing they could do for us was to put us back in line.
Put us back in line. And I am normally, as you know, I am not a Paul Collins. I am not a Skunkape. However,
thanks, AJ.
in that moment, I could have murdered someone. I was visibly angry, and she was almost like, "Oh, you must have just walked off. You must have just walked off premises and lost your signal." I was like, it never buzzed.
Like we were literally sitting on the front porch.
But I was literally like right outside that window.
Oh man, yeah, I would have been pretty upset too.
I was beyond upset. I will never go back. I don't care. I don't care. I will never go back. So we ended up at a Cracker Barrel. Yeah,
good choice.
So yeah,
good choice.
But yeah, so when we go camping, especially like on those big road trips, we try to gauge it out where we're only driving anywhere between 8 to 10 hours, because after that, it just, I think that's our threshold from going, okay, I'm okay. Yes, I know it's a long drive, to this is miserable.
Yeah.
I want to say the first time that we went out to Colorado coming back, obviously we've been out for a long time. This is our longest that we've been out. It was our first
5 weeks.
Yeah,
we went out for 5 weeks.
We were gone for a while. We just wanted to get home. And we switched back and forth between me and Dawn. We left, what is it, like Loveland? Is that the town like right on the border of Colorado and Kansas?
Okay.
And we drove for like 26 hours straight.
Oh wow!
Oh, that wasn't 5 years ago. That was the one very first time we went out there. Yeah, we didn't have the camper with us then.
Yeah,
we were tent camping.
And the only reason we stopped is we blew 2 tires at the same time
in Atlanta,
in downtown Atlanta,
on I-75.
Now,
that is impressive.
Oh, it was special. It was special because, well, luckily when we did it, it was like 6:30 in the morning or like 5:30 it was like really early. However, by the time we got in like the wrecker or whatever to take our vehicle to the auto parts place, it was like, okay, you stand here because if you move slightly over to this side, we all die.
Really?
The traffic
had picked up a lot. Yeah.
It's only like reason 892 that I hate Atlanta.
So we learned not to do that.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to avoid Atlanta too. Whenever I go up 75.
But
so out of the trips that y'all have taken, what trip have you liked the best, Dawn?
That's a tough question. Probably the one where we went out for 5 weeks, because we did so many of the national parks and things, and there were a few national parks like we had always dreamed of going to Glacier National Park, and we finally made it out there, and that was a really big deal. I have visited many of the national parks with my family growing up, so it's always really neat when we go to one that none of us have been to, and we can kind of all experience it for the first time.
Okay.
So
I think AJ has also mentioned that you've pretty much been to just about every state.
Yeah, I think I just have like 3 or 4 that I haven't been to.
And they're kind of random. Like she's been to Alaska, so Alaska's not even one.
Really?
Like, what is it? Like Hawaii? We haven't been.
Hawaii.
Like Michigan?
Yeah, no, I've been to Michigan. Like Minnesota, I think. Delaware. They're just kind of sprinkled.
It's a little sporadic. Okay. That's pretty neat, though, being in that many places.
With all the hangs and stuff in Minnesota, I said we should just, drag her out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Minnesota is a long way. We had talked about tossing out the idea of next summer, because we've already started like brainstorming, because if you're going to stay at the national park, you've got to plan almost a year in advance.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, especially now. Didn't you say it's gotten a little worse since COVID and all that stuff?
Everybody's. I mean, one thing that we did see a lot more of, I think just because of the areas we were in this summer, we saw a lot more opportunities to camp on public lands.
Okay.
Yeah, Colorado has a lot of public lands.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
so I don't know, like at this stage in our life right now, if we're really set up to do that, but seeing some of the places out there, especially if you drive some of the forest roads out there, like when we get rid of the kids, getting like a Jeep, because you need like a 4x4 high clearance Jeep to get through a lot of those trails.
Are you talking about like boondocking and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I know there's a couple of sites. My sister had showed me a couple of sites a couple of years back that you can go to, and it shows all the different boondocking places and, in the different states and how long you can stay and, all that good stuff.
I was really happy with like our camping that we did this summer. And we got to see like a few other places too that we could stay for future trips. I don't think that we went anywhere. Oh no, I take that back. We did go one place. I don't think we went too many places that I would say this summer that I wouldn't say that I want to go back to. That I would not want to go back to. Like,
where do you not want to go back to?
I could care less about going back to Great Sand Dunes. That was cool. Been there, done that.
Yeah, it's like a one-time. I mean, yeah.
Where was that?
Great Sand Dunes National Park.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And preserve.
Okay, well, let's kind of talk about, since we've talked about our trip, and let's talk about where we actually stayed. Okay, so
where we stayed.
We stayed. So we left on July 5th this year, and our first night was in a little outside of Vicksburg, Mississippi, and we stayed at this little. I mean, it was called Quillie's Campground.
It's a private campground.
It was just a private campground. It looked like it used to be maybe a KOA or it was kind of small. But, I mean, it was a perfect just overnight thing. And it was only like $30-some. Because when you're looking at the KOA, some of them, I mean, most of them are trying to be nicer. But, I mean, even the cheap ones are like $50 at the cheapest.
Well, you're paying for the facility,
right,
and all the extras.
So,
is that with a camper though? That's with the
because we don't.
Stuff?
I mean, we just basically need electricity.
Okay.
For what we do, we don't need like sewer or water or anything like that. So,
I just asked because I mean I've stayed at a couple of KOAs whenever I've gone off of work and stuff like that because I mean it was cheaper than getting a hotel and I like it better anyhow.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've only paid like $35 at the KOAs that I've stayed at.
Yeah. Have you stayed at a KOA recently?
No, it's been a few years.
Since COVID?
Yeah. It also depends on how popular the KOA or where it's located.
Or what style of KOA. Because there's like 3 or 4 different levels of KOA.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
So, well, speaking of hotels, our second night we were in Amarillo, and last time we came through Amarillo,
that's the steak place, right?
Yeah,
that's the steak place. We stayed at the KOA in Amarillo.
Okay.
The staff there was absolutely wonderful. They were crazy friendly. The staff there were great. The campground itself was miserable.
Well, because we're small, we often at the KOAs end up on an end pull through. Because as we go down the road, the sites get longer, so we end up on the end, and the winds were crazy, and we basically ended up being the windbreak for a whole row of campers in our little pop-up, and I didn't sleep very much that night because everything was rocking from the wind and stuff, and we said, no, we can't do that again.
It was like sleeping in a hammock in a structure that definitely should not shake as much as it did.
You shouldn't get that sway in a pop-up.
Yeah, you shouldn't get that sway in a camper. So this year we actually opted to stay in a hotel for while we were there, and that was nice just because we were able to.
Well, thankfully, after the whole dinner debacle, we didn't have to go and set up our camper or anything like that. So we just went to bed.
If we had to do that, I would have just been like, you know what, forget it. We're either driving back home or we're just going to the next spot. I'm just driving through the night. I'm done.
That was also the night after we managed to bend our tongue jack on our camper to the point where we couldn't use it.
How'd you do that?
We tried to get in a gas station.
Yeah.
And our tongue jack comes down the center of our A-frame of our trailer tongue.
It was just a really weird driveway, and
okay.
It was really
and
deep.
We just caught the little ditch of the driveway with it and bent it pretty good.
Gotcha.
So we had to rig it for the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
It was splendid. But I mean, we made it work.
We did, but we were thankful that one night we didn't have to deal with it and we could just sleep.
So we left Amarillo, thank goodness. And our next stop was in
Alamosa,
Colorado.
Okay.
Which is
southern Colorado.
Not too far across the border from New Mexico.
No.
But this is a KOA.
Just like 2.5 hours from Durango. Area.
So, Great Sand Dunes National Park. It was the first time I'd been there. Had you ever been there before?
No, that was the first time I went there.
Okay, so I think you go to Great Sand Dunes. You might stay one night and just go see it and then leave. It's kind of cool, but it's the sand dunes.
What you see is really cool because you have like these giant mountains, these 12, 13, 14,000 foot mountains, and then you have these sand dunes in front of the mountains. So just seeing the juxtaposition between the sand dunes and then the mountains, that was really cool. And then we did sand sledding. So we rented sand sleds and they gave us the boards and wax, and we waxed up the sleds and then we slid down the dunes. That was a lot of fun. The kids really enjoyed that.
Yeah. This was also like our first stop in the was the dark sky.
Yeah, like an international dark sky area, like a certified dark sky area.
So it was one of the first times that I was actually able to see the Milky Way. Because there was no moon out there. It was a new moon, or it was the moon didn't rise till much like 5 a.m. or something like that. So that was really cool. I was able to take my cricket stand and take it out to their viewing platform, and I was the only person out there, and so I got to see the stars in the mustiness of some dead animal that was killed on the road that was obviously stinking up the air. I mean, so that kind of took away from the ambiance, but it was really good out there and not getting eaten up by mosquitoes. But that was our only KOA that we stayed at.
Was it?
Yeah,
I guess so.
I think so. So we left Alamosa and we ended in Durango. That was our next stop.
We stayed at HTR Durango.
HTR Durango. I'm trying to think.
I forget what the HTR stands for.
Oh, that's the one like in the... Okay, that was the one that we stayed like on the creek. So that's the one that I attempted to sleep the night in the Freedom Stand.
Okay.
Because...
First night?
Yes. Because actually, all the sites that we were at this entire summer, I had to use a stand.
Yeah.
Because there were either no trees. They didn't allow you to hang from the trees. Like, for example, in Colorado, I think I mentioned this on another episode when we were recording out there. When
you couldn't even attach to the trees.
Yeah, you can't attach anything to the trees in Colorado state parks.
Gotcha.
Like, if you go to a national park, it's completely different laws. But strictly, there's laws on the books that I was able to read and easily find that said that no tethering to the tree in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
The campsite was kind of small. I mean, it was pretty. It worked. But the ground was like hard in some areas, really, really soft in others. It was mulchy because there was like a dead tree.
Right.
So I just couldn't get a good anchor and end up having a gravity check. A very soft gravity check, but a gravity set. So I was just like, I'm just going to use a cricket. So I gave up then. But Durango was a really cool little town. And so I'm trying to think like what else that we saw in Durango.
That's where we went to Mesa Verde National Park.
Oh,
It was
Mesa
out of
Verde.
Durango.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So, funny thing about Mesa Verde, if you don't get a reservation to go down into the
Cliff dwellings.
Mm-hmm.
just watch a YouTube video.
You had to have a ranger-led tour now. The one that you didn't have to have a ranger-led tour for has been got closed several years ago due to flooding or instability or something like that.
But the funny thing about that is she said a few years ago, but it's been closed since like 2012.
Yeah.
But there's nothing on their website. Like they are still like saying, you can do this little trail. Da, 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 da.
Yeah,
so that's what our plan had been.
It's a little confusing.
But it's been like 11 years.
So you're saying they don't keep up with their website?
Yeah, no.
It was really confusing, and despite how much research I generally do, this was one of the first times where I really kind of got it wrong.
Gotcha.
And we didn't get to go down into the cliff dwelling, so you can see lots of them, and it's cool to drive around, but it would have been a much better experience had we gotten to actually go through and explore them.
Absolutely. So, I think like if you were interested in cliff dwellings, what is it? The caves in Colorado Springs.
The caves?
Yeah, the cliff dwellings in Colorado Springs.
The Manitou cliff dwellings.
Yeah, the Manitou cliff dwellings is much like you can go in and it obviously it's a lot smaller, but you can go in and see things and it's.
But
really
it's
cool.
not. That's not its original placement. That one was like moved there and then fixed up so that you had the opportunity to go through it. So it's not quite as authentic as Mesa Verde is.
Gotcha.
But it's still a good experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't something that I would say like, oh, I'll never go back there or anything. But I mean, it was kind of a buzzkill. But I mean, there was some definitely pretty areas of Mesa Verde that we could see. There was like a canyon there that was really, really crazy cool. But if you're going there specifically for the cliff dwellings, heads up.
Make a reservation.
Yeah. Gotcha.
For sure.
So after we left Durango, we ended up at Ridgeway State Park. And Ridgeway State Park actually has either 2 or 3 campground areas.
I think it's 3.
That you can go. Now, when we left Durango, to get to Ridgeway, you have to drive something called the $1 Million Highway. And there's different reasons why they call it the $1 Million Highway. One of them being you would have to pay me $1 million to drive it, some guy said. So, because when you watch YouTube videos, it's kind of intense.
There's not really much guardrails, and there's definitely lots of switchbacks and S-curves, and you're very close to the edge.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we made that towing the pop-up. Made like a champ, and we drove through Silverton and Ouray, and that was just an incredible. Oh, it was a beautiful drive, absolutely stunning. I think it's one of the more picturesque drives that we have done for long periods of time, and we didn't really stop in Silverton. That might be another trip down the road. And Ouray was just this really cool, small little mountain town that had a lot of like really good restaurants that weren't like chain based.
Right.
But when you get out, there's this, I don't know if it was like natural or man-made lakes that are out there where Ridgeway is, but there's 3 campgrounds. There's a state park.
I think they are reservoirs.
I
think they're reservoirs.
And so we stayed at one that didn't have a lot of trees, so it was really, really hot. Next time we go back out that way, because I would definitely go back to that whole Ridgeway
Don't
area.
even talk to me about hot, buddy.
Yeah.
Well,
there were definitely some better options for other cooler campsites.
Okay.
Because the one hike that we attempted to do out there, I totally would like to redo. That was where we
to the Blue Lakes.
To the Blue
Lakes hike.
So we drove like an hour on to get out
Well,
there.
it wasn't really that far. It's just because it takes you like an hour to go like a mile on the road. So.
Gotcha.
So we started a little bit later than we wanted to, and some of us aren't as fast of a hiker as others, and we thought we were going to make it before sundown because we were also stupid and we didn't bring any headlights. But we had like one creek crossing, but the creek, they had gotten so much rain or something, I guess like during the day, it had turned into like this raging thing, and we hadn't prepared for that.
Right.
So we didn't have like water shoes, but when you put your foot in it, it was so cold that it hurt.
It's
it just
snow
hurt.
Melt water.
Right.
It's freezing.
And so I was like, well, we're not going to make it to the Blue Lakes anyway. I'm going to hike down. I'm done. But the elevation was pretty significant too. But I mean, it was the creek. I got stopped at the creek.
Yeah.
Right.
We did have some pretty views.
It was incredible. It was just the section that we did. It was absolutely stunning. It's one thing that I'm just always blown away about Colorado. Just when I can't think that it could get prettier, it does.
That's the stop where we went and checked out Telluride also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Telluride is a
cool
beautiful town. It's kind of ritzy, kind of like bougie, expensive, lots of money, ski town.
Gotcha.
So I wouldn't like to stay there, just visit, but yeah, that was really cool. I had some like tacos there from like this taco shop. It was really, really good. So we went to Ridgeway, and from Ridgeway, we went to Black Canyon in the Gunnison, which is another national park that I had not been to.
And I had not been to.
So this was a new one for both of us. What can we say about Black Canyon? It's really, really cool. One of the things...
The canyon is cool.
The canyon is really, really cool. And some of the stops that you can see and look into the canyon, it's almost vertigo-inducing.
Yes.
Because the way the rocks are kind of formed, you really can't gauge what is closer, what is further. It's really hard to explain. Yeah. But it's just massive and stupid deep. And... it was really, really cool. And we drove also down into the Gunnison River as well, and got some hammock pictures down there. And that was really, really fun.
But I wouldn't camp there again.
Yeah, I would
stay at Ridgeway State Park and just drive in, because it's like 45 minutes away from that area. The campground, it's not that it was bad, but our site did not fit our camper. It's the first time we've ever had that problem because we're so small.
Right.
But we have a little tiny slide out on our pop-up, and it was literally like an inch from where the road was, and we couldn't get it. They're not pull through sites. They call them like pull off sites.
Okay. Yeah.
But they still kind of have a C shape to them. And so to try to get the truck and the camper and where we needed to, and there were tree branches hanging over, and it was the longest it's ever taken us to just park the camper so that we could pop it up. So we go back to Ridgeway and just drive over and visit. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
And then we went to Twin Lakes.
Yeah, then we went to Twin Lakes. All right, so that's about a halfway point on our trip, and we're about to take a break for a week, and we'll fill in everybody else on the next part of our adventure, which is some of my favorite parts that we've been to before.
Yep.
And we can talk about the second half of our trip next week.
Okay.
We'll have some great info. If you have some questions, either on the parts of our trip that we've talked about on this side, or maybe some just general travel questions that you have for us, just drop us a line, and hopefully we can answer them for you next week. And I'm really looking forward to having my wife back on, and I'm sure Paula is going to try another swoop at getting me in trouble.
Exactly. Of course. You got to. Why are we friends, right?
Why are we?
All right. Well, yeah, that will definitely work. And so next week will be part 2. This is our first multi-part episode. that we have.
And then the week after that, we have our anniversary episode.
Our 1 year anniversary.
Our 1 year anniversary.
No.
52 episodes. It's a lot of episodes to put
It's
up
a lot
with
of
AJ.
episodes.
So
Lots of words.
yeah, lots of words. All right, guys. Well, that will work. And thank y'all for coming on. And we will talk to y'all again next week. And everybody, as normal, just follow us on Facebook, Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube, and help spread the word of us. And until next week, happy hanging, everyone.